Welcome to the New Now Next podcast, produced by the Asia chapter of the Asian American Journalists Association.
We are a community of journalists, academics, entrepreneurs, and students across the world who are committed to advancing diversity in the news industry and promoting the highest standards of journalism.
Each year, AAJA-Asia holds its annual New Now Next media conference, N3Con, to bring together members from across Asia. My name is Yehun.
And I'm Cheryl, and this is an episode in the podcast series leading up to our 2022 conference. Featuring the theme Covering a Disrupted World, we explore what it means to be journalists in times of conflict, crisis, and reform. Welcome, Beatrice. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you briefly introduce yourself and what you do?
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for inviting me to this interview. Yes, to everyone listening, hi, I'm Beatrice Go. I'm a freelance sports journalist and researcher from the Philippines. And I guess I don't know if I could say it briefly because I'm kind of juggling two things at the same time, like as a freelancer, but as a journalist. So I cover Philippine sports as my main beat and it's Philippine sports governance. So basically, I cover national teams and athletes. Then I actually started my career in Rappler, which is a Philippine online news site, and it's an independent media organization. So I started my career there after graduation in 2017. Then I covered major sports events there, like the Tokyo Olympics, SEA Games, Asian Games. And I guess as a multimedia reporter for Rappler, I had to wear like multiple hats and juggle lots of things because like journalists now, it's a different calling. So I had to not only write breaking news articles, but I also anchored the Rappler Talk. Then I shot live reports, wrote scripts, produced videos, and even hosted a podcast. And now I guess like as a researcher, like things have been more chill. So I'm actually doing a women's sports content audience research for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Women in News and Sport initiative. So this one, it's part of the International Development Program of the ABC. And I've been a part of this program as an alumni since 2018. So then when I left Rappler, so they were planning to do this kind of research and they got me to do it for them. So freelancing has allowed me to step out of just like being like a multimedia reporter like almost all my professional life to just explore other things in media.
Wow, that sounds like a lot and really interesting. So what are some of your like memorable experiences that you've have had as a female sports journalist in the Philippines?
Yeah, so I have been a female sports journalist professionally for 5 years, but then I started my um like career, I guess, or more of I was like a campus journalist for Ateneo de Manila University, which was and then the publication I wrote for was the Guidon, and there I covered like the collegiate league UAP. So I covered almost all of the sports there. So that was really fun because that was the time that I was able to fall in love with the work more and like actually like hone my passion there. And I guess like just transitioning to the professional life, I guess like if you're going to ask me what was my most memorable coverage as well, so it would have to be the 2018 Asian Games in Jakarta, Indonesia, because that was my first ever international coverage. And the Asian Games is not like the SEA Games where it just runs for 2 weeks compressed in around 10 days, or even the Olympics where only a few athletes who are like super elite play. But then the Asian Games is in the middle of it. So it ran for 3 weeks. So I was abroad for 3 weeks straight. And I get it. Like, yeah, no days off in those 21 days. But then it was just real. It was a good opportunity to like kick off like how I, as a newbie journalist back then, because I was just 22 years old and I was the youngest reporter in the delegation also. So it was such a good experience where I was able to witness a an athlete winning a gold medal in a major international event. So that was Yuka Saso. She's our golfer, and then she won two golds for there because there was like she won the individual gold, but then she also won the team gold. And then I was also able to meet Filipino American NBA player Jordan Clarkson of the Utah Jazz because he played for the men's national basketball team. So I got to cover him up close and even talk to him. So yeah, like definitely one of the books. And then I guess like as a journalist, you'll be able to join like fellowships also. So I was able to join the fellowship by Wins that allowed me to cover the 2019 ARA Games in Darwin, Australia. And that's where I received training for radio broadcast and got to like meet the Aboriginal community in Australia for the first time. Yeah.
Wow, that's extensive. Even like radio broadcast and then, doing podcasting and 21 days straight, like working, I would be so tired at the end of it.
Yeah, that's why it's so good that I was able to do it at 22 years old because I was just like looking back maybe I don't know, like I think I'd have a limit for it. Yeah, like I would still be right. I guess like the reality of it is like I'll be writing stories until like 1 a.m. and then at the end of and you still have to write the breaking news, right? And around 7 p.m. you have to have your script ready already for the live report, and then you shoot it, then just go back to writing again. So that's the reality of how multimedia sports journalists are.
Wow, that's challenging, but also very fulfilling. Then could you maybe share a bit about the opportunities and also the challenges of, being female sports journalist, but also just, working in the sports media industry?
Okay, so when it comes to the challenges, the first thing I could think of, it's still a predominantly male leadership in the sports media industry. And to illustrate this in terms of mainstream publications, my former manager in Rappler, Jasmine Payo, is the only female sports editor. But then this is just in the sphere of mainstream media. And I know she's the lone female also in the board of like officers in the Philippine Sports Writers Association. So you could see like how much of a trailblazer she is, and to see like how it could a predominantly male leadership could still be a problem in sports is because like the stories will always be framed with a male gaze when it comes to female athletes, and it is not as bad as before already. So back in 2015 and 2016, I did see articles that have headlines such as hottest female volleyball players, or they actually use the bikini photos of the athlete for the articles instead of the actual athletes in uniform. And then there was a lot of language and terminology such as volleyball to describe a female volleyball player and aquabell to describe a female swimmer. So I believe that things have been better now, and even the upcoming sports journalists, the younger ones, kind of know that why it's wrong also to actually write it that way. But then the for example those terminologies like they do the use of those terminologies do have an effect on the younger generation because I did encounter that when I was in a campus journalist writing for the Guidon. And so it just shows how mainstream media really plays a big part in influencing like even how the audience and the younger generation would speak, talk, and write. And the bottom line really is that we just need more stories about female athletes being athletes and just not talking about like their personal lives, who their relationships are, and like even like the physical attributes of like the female athletes. Um and I guess like as a sports reporter, like and in the social setting. So I recently had an experience where I joined like a sports group with people that I've never met, and a guy just asked me straight up like if I had dated an athlete, and of course, and I wasn't like offended or anything, but then like I just said no because like it's media ethics, and when I was younger, like I was pretty committed to my career, and I would naturally follow the code of ethics. So personally, I would set boundaries and all that, right? But then the his reply to me was like, "You're one of the good ones," and that really just got me thinking about what it just got me thinking, like why did he even have that perception, or where he was coming from. But then I eventually did ask where he was coming from, and he did say that it's because like most people who audition to be like a student courtside reporter, which is like a program by one of the broadcasting corporations in the Philippines to like train and develop the next sportscaster or next presenter. So like most of the people who were selected, I guess, ended up dating athletes. I mean, well, there's nothing wrong with that also, because like number one, like it's not like you're a student courtside reporter like forever, and you cannot control love and relationships, right? Just the but then I just really had a problem with that perception that women, and it's sad that the people think that being a woman in sports means like I just have like some motive to like date a basketball player, date an athlete, and yeah, like and I could also but then like I could also speak for, and I just feel bad that these were like generalized on us as well. And I'll speak also highly of my friends who became courtside reporters. These people are just one of the most talented and committed people to the work that they do in sports media. And you know they could either be in like stable relationships also with some athletes, or they are former athletes themselves. And I just feel like who are you to judge, because like in the end, like these people end up working to be producers in CNN. They even one of them reported for CNN, and some of them become news anchors also, not only in sports. And that's really the design of the student courtside reporter program. So I believe that there needs to be a change in that very patriarchal perception also.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And oh yeah, so I should move on to the opportunities as well. Sorry, like that was like quite long also for the challenges, because I guess it was really fresh. Like I just had that, right? So I guess like for the opportunities, it's more of like there's so many women athletes now, and because there are more women athletes who are so successful in the Philippines. Like, for example, Heidelin Diaz, Yuka Sasso, Alex Ayala, Jack Animam, they it would be nice to have more women sports journalists so that they could understand and connect with these athletes, so that people could be able to consume better stories because they're delivered with like how like an empowered woman would per, perceive like their co-women and all that. And then and also like after the pandemic, I guess like when I was about to leave Raptor, because I used to handle the internship, like that internships for Raptor Sports. So I guess like there are people who are asking me like, oh, do you know anyone who's um who can write for us, because there's suddenly like sports events are coming back, and the current pool of sports journalists right now, oh, we're just all like getting burned out and all that, because I mean we cannot handle like how many sports events are like coming together and like happening at the same time. So we would like to get a lot of contributors, and I guess that's an opportunity also for both men and women sports journalists. And you could actually take the steps to like take internships or even write for campus publications, which is where I started. And um because and it's just so important to be present in the press room, because that's uh, like I took a different path, I guess, to where I am, where I was just seen by my colleagues when I was a campus journalist, that I was interviewing players, waiting for them at the dugout. Then I was in the press room, I would ask questions. So that gave me like almost like a real life experience and an advantage over those who just took communications and journalism but then weren't present in the real work setting. So um and I guess like there are just more women also right now, women sports journalists. And my boss is like a sports editor, and she's like the only female sports editor in mainstream media. So but then in the Philippines, like there are, and in those maybe local publications like in the provinces, there are women in sports already. So and these are people who are willing to mentor these journalists. And now broadcast networks are also looking for more female voices in commentating and anchoring. And of course, being part of WINS, like we also do workshops for women sports journalists. Like that's how I got in, like how I got into it. So WINS provides a lot of skills equipping workshops, and I just attended almost every one of them. And then now we're also expanding it to university students. So that was the seminar that I actually did 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so it's nice to actually meet like the new breed of women sports journalists.
Yeah, speaking of, aspiring journalists, even in university students like myself, do you have any tips or advice for, journalists, female or male, like who are looking to go into the sports industry? Any, quick like tips that you've learned throughout the years from your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first one is to actually do not be scared. Like you would know when if you're afraid of it, like you could always ask the question to yourself, like, what's holding you back from pursuing this? Is it because like, a lot of because of the is it because of the challenges? Is it because like it's not what like it's different from what society is painting and all that? But then if it's fear, just rest assured that you'll have other women sports journalists in the press room. Now there are a lot of them, well, not a lot, but then there are a number where you could actually befriend and know that it's okay to be a women's sports journalist. And there's also WINS. We also provide a community and a network for these women sports journalists too. And another one is definitely to know your values as well. So and like because there's a like your journal, and this is your journalistic values to be specific. So yeah, like with with the incident that I had the other day, just being asked those questions, like you'd have to really know your code of ethics. And that's really what we stand by also as journalists. And right now it's not only for sports journalists, but the journalists as a whole, like the world is like kind of losing their trust in media. So you just really have to um know what the just be so aware of that every decision that you make can also like affect what people can affect people's trust in you also. You don't want to be biased definitely, right? So those kinds of things, like I guess it's really it really boils down to the values, and in your and when you know your values, then you're gonna act upon them. So that's when you actually set boundaries, like, and actually get your own support system also, and it has to be the healthy support system. Remember that. So you have like the people that you choose to be family as well. And yeah, and when it comes to fear, don't ever let gender roles prevent you from achieving like what you want.
Yeah, these are like really great advice. I think everyone can use it, not just journalists or even just women trying to break into any field. Anyone, I think, yeah, it's really applicable. Well, like now zooming into the future, I know, we're wondering what your career plans are for the future. I know you were a speaker for the first Women in News and Sports University online journalism seminar. Now you're freelancing. So we're excited to hear what's up, what's next.
Yeah. So funny, before I left Rappler, I was actually applying for master's programs in gender and social justice, but and I even decided to like leave the company without an acceptance letter, and like, my next steps were like quite blurry. But then I just really felt that like I just really wanted to walk in faith, and but then I ended up getting like rejected. But then I'm going to Bible college actually, so I'll be taking that for a year while continuing to work for Wins, and even and continuing to freelance as well. So it just kind of show, like, I honestly never imagined myself, like, if you'd asked me last year where I think I'd be, like, I think that I would actually be in grad school, but then I would have never imagined that still here right now freelancing, and even being more active in Wins and going to Bible college. So unexpected. So it just kind of just it shows like how our plans can get wrecked, but then it's definitely something better than I have imagined. So I guess those are my next steps. And like, I don't I'm just like walking in whatever I have now, right? Just being faithful also with the things that have been entrusted to me this year. And that really just includes finishing off the sports content audience research and saying yes to more opportunities for me to grow smarter and wiser and more equipped to thrive in the current situation and future of media. But for sure, I do want to be a leader in this industry. So we'll just see how that will look like. Because that is something like I think like I wouldn't ever imagine as well.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about the grad school, but I'm so glad that you're, doing well and like everything will work out in the end and and you're flourishing. So I think it's really great and it's really great to see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely living in the present first, and just knowing that what I have right now is enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm doing enough also.
Yeah, it's sometimes we're so caught up with like trying to reach our goals, we always forget like the present. But I think, yeah, that's is really good advice also.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing about your experiences, advice. I'm sure the listeners really enjoyed this podcast, this episode, and hopefully we can have another one with you in the future, just to hear about what you're up to again in plans. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Cheryl. And I guess for those who would want to just like reach me like on social media or on LinkedIn, like you could just follow me on Twitter and Instagram, bbgo09. And then for LinkedIn, I think you could just search my name. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely link the information on the podcast website itself so you can check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Cheryl. Thank you for inviting me. And for those who also want to be sports journalist in the future, no matter if you're a male or female, it's really going to be so fun. As long as you love sports, then you're definitely going to thrive in this field.